allergy is a condition that is potentially life-threatening and basically has a very high prevalence in all over the world, also in Europe and the US. So presence of allergens in food potentially is a high risk for a large number of consumers. And during the last decades, several studies have shown that there is improvement needed for the warning about potential allergens in food. Even 30 to 50% of all food recalls, for instance, are allergen related. About the information provision to the consumers on allergens. So that indicates that there is a gap between informing consumers about risks of allergens and the potential risks that there are indeed in the food. So there were really reasons to come up with better legislation in the area of information provision of allergens. It basically evaluated scientific research that evolved during the last 20-25 years. Based on all that research, they basically came up with four types of recommendations. So four recommendations on four different topics. One is, what are basically the allergenic foods that are really a big problem on a global scale? So which allergens are basically important to include in legislation? So that is one. The second was, for those allergens that are important allergens, at what doses or levels present in food do they really become a danger? So is there a possibility of establishing safe levels above which a recommendation on the label should be used, and below which warning would basically be a warning for nothing? So to come up with health-based guidance values. And the third one is to come up with better systems for deciding when and when not to warn, and particularly in the area of precautionary allergen labeling. Because if an allergen is used as an ingredient in food, there's clear legislation. You always have to mention that on the label. It goes wrong in the area of unintentional presence of allergens in foods. Allergens may end up in food unintendedly. For instance, because a production line in a factory cannot be cleaned 100%, then there is a small chance that an allergen ends up in food while it is not intended. Well, when do you need to warn for that and when not? When the risk is very low. So that's the third. And the fourth topic of recommendation was, if you have a derivative from an allergenic food, for instance an oil where hardly any protein is present, is it still needed to label that as an allergen if there's no protein anymore in the products, because there is no risk of inducing allergic reactions anymore? So when should a derivative be considered as non-allergenic anymore? And also for that there was a recommendation how to establish that. We basically played a very strong role, but that has to do with the fact that we have been doing research for over 25 years on these topics. So one of the things that we have done already since the early years of this millennium is to build up a database regarding the sensitivity of allergic people for food allergens. So we have the worldwide largest database with sensitivities of food allergic individuals, which we basically own together with the Food Allergy Research and Resources Program of the Nebraska University. But at TNO we house and maintain this database, and that was used to calculate safe levels of exposure of allergens. Another topic that we have been doing is to investigate what do people with food allergy eat, because if you want to come up with safety recommendations, you also need to know how much do they eat, because that determines how much allergens food allergic individuals eat in the end. So we also evaluated food consumption behavior of food allergic individuals, which was also used in the elaboration of safe levels and the establishment of procedures for deciding on whether or not to warn for an allergen.